What's up guys, Spin Firearms here, and in front of me I have two Tauruses. Now these are the Taurus GX4s, and no, these were not listed in the recall, so mine have actually been really nice pistols. But obviously Taurus makes budget oriented pistols, and the two in front of you cost below $500 before transfer fees, taxes, that whole sort of thing. I got them both for around $240. I wish I would have got the Cerakoted model because both of these have very little to none holster time, and they're actually really worn down for what it is. But they're actually really nice shooting handguns. The finish doesn't bother me that much, but if I were to get a GX4 today, I would get a Cerakoted version. Now, being so cheap, does it make sense to put money into these, right? And I just want to say about the Taurus GX4, this is actually really interesting. So I was at the local gun store yesterday. I'm not sure when this video is going to come out, but the day before I'm making this video right now, and I asked, do you guys sell a lot of Tauruses? And they said, yeah, we sell a fair amount, right? And then I said, do they come back a lot? And every time I go to the gun store, I ask a different person to see what their response is. And they're always pretty similar across the board. He said, no, not really. He goes, you know what does come back a lot? SIG P320s and SIG P322. So I believe that's a 22 model. And I was actually pretty shocked and blown away by that. But I mean, here's the thing. A lot of people buy the P320, so there's a large sample size. So could that contribute to it? Possibly. But think about a Glock 19, Glock 19X, stuff like that. Those are sold like crazy, and they're not seeing those come back. So I just wanted to say that compared to the Tauruses and stuff like that, Tauruses are coming back a little bit less, and that used to not be the case with the GX4. But for a handgun that's $240, you get a great handgun right out of the box. Now mine have ran flawlessly. Obviously the first one I got, that was a display model. Second I brought it home, it was having issues. I had the delayed striker. So what would happen is I would rack the slide, pull the trigger, nothing would happen. And then about 10 seconds later, then the striker would go off. 20 seconds later, then the striker would go off. And that was actually a pretty common problem from the Taurus GX4 series when it first came out. Now, since then, they've corrected it. They've come out with the, the XL or the carry model or whatever the case may be, all sorts of configurations of this handgun. And I think it's doing a great job and pretty successful. Now, what would you upgrade on a Taurus GX4? There's not really much I would want to put into it because it's basically perfect as is. It feels great in the hand. The trigger is an awesome defensive trigger. Takes Glock sights. We'll do that reset one more time. Has awesome memory pads. And one of the greatest things about the handgun, honestly, is the texturing, the stippling. They got it right. It's dang near perfect. And honestly, out of all the Micro 9s, I think the CSX is the most comfortable in the hand, but that's because it's a little bit wider and has a different backstrap. But the GX4 really does fill your hand really well with the big backstrap. I like how it sort of sticks out. You see this question mark, reverse question mark? It fits the hand perfectly. Look at where this is sitting in your palm swell. It just locks that handgun into your hand. And that's why I don't mind using it with, the flush mag. Now, I don't carry these very often. I have carried them before. But I do shoot them at the range a fair amount because I think they're a very pleasant Micro 9 to shoot. I think they're just a great shooting Micro 9. For $240, everyone should have a GX4 in their collection. Now, I get that there was the, the recall. And that's a big deal. I know it's just like a simple batch of them, but still, that is a big deal. Mine weren't on the list. Mine haven't had issues. I'm not too worried about it. But I just still don't like that. It sketches me out a little bit. Now, what is the $80 upgrade that I put on these that was ridiculous, right? Well, notice this backstrap. That's normal. Now look at this, right? Now, if you compare their overall profile, it's basically the same as the large backstrap. There's really not much different between the two. So what is the difference? Well, this one is metal. It's brass. It's painted brass. Now, it adds weight, so they claim it helps mitigate some of the recoil, and I would agree. But also the point of carrying such a small handgun like this is oftentimes weight, size, being comfortable. So adding a whole lot of weight to this handgun, and I mean it's a dramatic difference. I don't know the actual weight of the backstrap, but it is pretty dramatic. I do want to say though, it does feel good with the texturing, but the texturing already on the backstrap given with the GX4 is dang near perfect. I mean, this is just ready to go right out of the box. And here's what's crazy about it. This, right here, this backstrap costs a third of this handgun. So you just bought a full handgun, functioning handgun, stuff like that, but just one backstrap costs that. And I paid for it, and it was me. And there was a lot of hype about it, and a lot of people, like big influencers, made videos on it and all this stuff. And I agree with certain grips on certain handguns and stuff like that, but I think this was probably one of the biggest wastes of money when it comes to firearms that I've ever spent, because it literally does nothing for the firearm. The recoil is not that noticeable, the difference. The texturing is not much better, if anything at all. It does feel good in the hand, but that's because it's the exact same profile as this right here. So what are some upgrades I would actually put on a Taurus GX4? Definitely not this. This was a waste. I should have put the $80 towards a pair of night sights, considering these take Glock pattern sights. That would have been well worth it. Possibly over time, $80 towards the Cerakote of this thing. That would be perfect. Other than that, I don't think the Taurus GX4 needs much more. And the reason why I'm making this video is you sort of get to see the effects of, you know, buying stuff based off a YouTube video, right? I went out and bought this because I was like, oh yeah, it's really going to upgrade my GX4 like everyone said in their videos that it got sent to. I'm like, you know, it's going to change the handgun for me. It literally does nothing but sit in a safe. I barely even use the GX4. This is not worth it. You know, that's just the example. And that's why a lot of people, you know, end up spending a ton of unnecessary money on products they will never use, they probably don't use, or, you know, money that could have gone towards training or ammo. This would have got me a defensive pistol class. Now, what am I going to get more out of? A backstrap on a pistol that mitigates recoil by probably 2%? Or is it going to be $80 spent at a defensive pistol class? Maybe it's, you know, 2-3 hours, but I'm getting something out of it. Yeah, I have to spend more money on ammo and stuff, but I'm really learning how to use the pistol. I think upgrades like this are basically pointless, especially on budget firearms. Now, if it's like on a 1911 or something more expensive, and you want to change out the grips, yeah, I think that makes sense. But on a $240 handgun, who knows how long my GX4 will last? Who knows how many rounds this thing can handle, and what kind of abuse it can take? Budget firearms have to cut corners somewhere, and it's just not in the finish. I know a lot of people with a lot of GX4s that, you know, run really well. I also know people with GX4s that have had tons of issues. It just is what it is. So that's why I think putting $80 into just a backstrap is absolutely ridiculous, and I am the one who fell for it. I am the fool who did it. I think the GX4, as is, right out of the box, maybe throw some night sights in it, is a tremendous firearm. It is great. It is such a smooth shooter. It's a fast shooter. It's an accurate little handgun that most people can afford, and that's a big thing. And I get people are going to say, oh, just work harder, blah, blah, blah. It is what it is. Budget firearms are awesome for people who may be just out of college, just out of high school, you know, finding their first job, whatever the case may be. Something like this is going to rip when you shoot it. And if you start off with a smaller firearm, you're going to learn overall firearm fundamentals a little bit better. If you can shoot this thing, you can shoot a Glock 19. If you can shoot this, you can shoot a P226. If you can shoot a small handgun, you can basically shoot any size handgun in 80 caliber. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.